It's a peaceful day at the KOA. People are settled in. It's the afternoon here at the campground, a little north and west of Allendale here. And it's quiet and it's calm. And think of all the things that you leave behind when you go camping. Hopefully, we're able to leave behind work responsibilities. We get to leave behind stresses. For a kid, we gotta leave behind any chores that we have to do. There's no laundry to be done here. There aren't any dishes. We don't have to take care of things. We don't have to clean our bedroom. All those things are left behind. And here we are. We're gonna sit. We're gonna relax. We're gonna get our camper set up. We're gonna pitch a tent. And for the next 3 days, 7 days, looking forward to the 4th of July weekend, wherever it might be, we're just gonna be for a while. Sounds good. Now imagine if God called you like he called Abram, who would later be named Abraham, the father of many nations. That you're gonna leave behind not just work, but you're gonna leave behind everything. Genesis 12, verse 1. Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land that I will show you. Okay, we have this call and this promise that is later on described that the Lord is going to make him the father of many nations. And then once he gets to Canaan, the land that he's going to show him, the promised land, is describing that his descendants are going to receive this land. That would take a big leap of faith. Earlier in Genesis 11, he leaves with his father and goes together from one place to another. But by faith, it is described. As we continue our series on faith and how faith is often expressed in obedience, in trusting God for something that's going to be off into the future. Allow me to read these verses from Hebrews 11, 8 and 9. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, which should be noted, it wasn't Isaac, his son, who received the inheritance. It wasn't Jacob. It was many generations later where they finally received the inheritance. Truly an act of faith for future generations. Abraham obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Okay, we've got GPS. That's one way to find out where we're going. That's one thing. But the bigger thing was, Abraham was called to realize that his permanent home was not going to be where he grew up, and it wasn't even going to be amongst the people. He was not called to set up shop, to build houses, to build castles, to build towers. No, he lived in a temporary dwelling. By faith, he made his home in the promised land. Like a stranger in a foreign country, he lived in tents. Okay? Looking forward to doing some of that. I don't mind sleeping in a tent for a day or two. I don't want to do it for a week. That's going to hurt my back. That's why most of the people out here, they have campers. They didn't want to leave behind a mattress. They didn't want to leave behind maybe just a little touch of air conditioning, because I think it's supposed to be high 80s and 90s this weekend, right? We don't want to leave behind all of our creature comforts. But Abraham, it says, went and lived in tents. Well, why? For he was looking for a city with foundations whose architect and builder is God. The city was the gathering place, the place of safety in the ancient world. You would travel around, maybe grazing. The tents would be moving if you're more of a nomadic people where you had flocks. But if ever there was a danger, if ever there was a foreign enemy, you would always retreat back to the city. That's where your security was. Abraham's security, by the call of God, was not to be in the place or his family where he grew up with. And it was not meant to be the people and the religions and the worship practices of the Canaanites. He was meant to find his permanent hope, which he would not receive in his lifetime, but his permanent hope in the permanent security in the dwelling place that God would build that would never end, to dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever, as Psalm 23 says. By faith, Abraham left everything behind, and every single night when he went to sleep, he was reminded that this is not my forever, everlasting home. And we too are called to remind ourselves, whether or not we are at a campground this week, in a tent, in our backyard, up north, down south, traveling, or in our own homes, our eternal home is in the very presence of God, being prepared for us by Jesus Christ, our Lord and our King. Let's trust in that future home by faith.